Hello everyone and welcome back to the Siege Mailbox, a video series where you, the viewer, leave your Siege related questions and topic discussions in the comments, and there's a chance I'll cover them in the next video. Just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting this series so far, and as always I get a ton of comments, so if I haven't addressed your question yet, doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. There's just so many, so if you want to, you're welcome to comment it again or ask any new ones. Just want to say as well, we're getting very close to 200,000 subscribers, so if you haven't already, hit that sub button, drop a like on the video, and let's get into this. So this first question is a great one by Shallow Lion, and they say, what do you think about an Alibi rework? Her gadget could have different holograms for your team. Like one is Capcan, other is Mute, etc. Now, I think this is a really fun idea. Although Alibi may not be necessarily needing a rework, I would see this as more of a buff rework than a complete gadget change rework, because this is a really fun and creative idea which adds a lot of depth to the gadget. Now, let's take your concept and I'll add how this could work. So, like you're saying, you can make an Alibi decoy of anyone on your team at that current time, and of course, including yourself. They would also use the default skins of all the operators. You gave the example of Capcan, so he would be wearing his default skin with the SMG out, since that is the more common weapon. They would also be doing the default standing pose, the same as Alibi's one, and to choose which operator you want to come from this decoy, we could have a system similar to Deimos, where it has the icons of your friendly operators this time on the side of your screen, and you just press the action button, similar to Deimos, to switch between which one you want to deploy. Now, there's a lot of great things you could do with this, in my opinion. A good one could be for Bandit or Kaid. If you place a decoy Bandit or Kaid by a reinforced wall, if someone is doing a half-hearted drone, or you shoot their drone in the process, and they only get a glimpse of a Bandit and Kaid by a hard wall, they then may think, okay, that Bandit is Bandit tricking this wall, when in reality, Bandit is actually doing a completely different wall. You could do the same thing with roamers as well. You can make a decoy Kavera and hide it downstairs. Someone may drone it out, not realize it's a decoy, and start roam clearing an operator which isn't actually there. That would take the concept of Alibi's decoy and add so much more depth to it. Another great one that comes to mind as well would be a decoy of Pulse. Hiding that decoy below the bomb site may trick enemies into thinking that Pulse is playing below, going for a nitro cell. And of course, once again, they would be standing still with their primary weapon out, the one that's more commonly used, and would be wearing their default uniforms. Now, there is some downsides to this. I do imagine that this would make the game a lot more confusing for a lot of people, because we are going from a stage of, well, you've got Alibi, there's a potential that she has decoys, everyone knows that, to any defender on the team could be a decoy. But then again, at the end of the day, that's the beauty of Siege. That would be a power of her gadget, and you would be rewarded for droning out, bringing a Twitch or a Brava, and especially an IQ. I think this is one of the most creative and fun buffs / reworks that could come to a gadget in the game, because you are taking the concept of Alibi and adding so much more depth to it, and of course buffing her in the process. So would this be a lot more confusing for the attackers? Most definitely, but I also cannot deny the fact that adding fake decoys of your teammates would be really fun and lead to some interesting plays. Bringing a mirror and placing a decoy mirror to play behind the mirror window just sounds so interesting, and I would love to see what plays come from that. I actually think this is one of the most fun concepts that's ever been presented, and I absolutely love this comment. I would 100% be down for this, and I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this one. This next one is by Carson Lynch, and they say that in their opinion, Sledge's gadget is too boring, and how would I change it to make it more entertaining? Now, when you say that, I assume you mean like weak, or you don't really want to bring a Sledge when you can bring a Buck or a Ram to play Vert, which I totally agree with. I hardly play Sledge myself. I definitely think they do need to take a little look at Sledge. Macy J put out a great one, which is just like, it'd be nice if you could hold your hammer out just for quicker swinging and vertical play, which is something you can do in Rainbow Six Extraction, if I'm not wrong, which was a good change for him. But yeah, that makes sense, because you have to keep putting your hammer on your back every time you want to take a swing. If you could just hold down the key just to keep it out and then keep swinging, I agree that would be nice. A little nice touch up there. I also think it could be quite good to make him a counter to some operators, such as Clash, if she has her shield up, rather than his sledgehammer just kind of doing a standard melee hit where it pushes her shield to the side. I definitely think it would be good if Sledge would have the knockback effect similar to Shields, Oryx, and Nomad's air jab, especially if you're being able to get that up close and personal with a clash that you have your sledgehammer out. You definitely should be rewarded by knocking her on the back, since that isn't her standard melee and that is your gadget being used. But I've also got my own little concept as well, which could add a bit more viability to Sledge. And that would be changing the effect of when he does destruction, whether that be on a barricade, a soft floor, a castle barricade, anything that Sledge can destroy. I think he should have a different effect than Buck and Ram has, as well as breaching charges. Now, you're going to have to just hear what I'm saying here, because it isn't going to necessarily make sense why Sledge's hammer could do this compared to anything else. But I think that if you're on the other end of Sledge breaching a floor or a wall, for example, then maybe if you're close enough, it should do some shrapnel damage and maybe even a concussion effect. This would then separate Sledge's verticality play from someone else's, because yeah, Ram can throw a boogie and it'll open up half the floor, but if someone does a sledgehammer above you, some shrapnel would fall down below, do a little bit of damage to you, and also have a little bit of a concussion effect. This would separate Sledge from Buck and Ram a bit, but still keeping him in the same vein of operator, and maybe also give him the SMG secondary back as well. Yes, I know, why would the sledgehammer cause this effect on the other side, whereas like a boogie wouldn't, but I just think at the end of the day, we have to separate Sledge a little bit and give him a little edge when it comes to breaching such as that. It would just make him stand out more, because if you're playing in a downstairs site and they're getting verticality above you, if there's a boogie going across, right, you know it's a Ram. Her advantage here is that it opens up the floor with ease and a lot of it gets destroyed. If it's a Buck, he has the shotgun, which is not only destroying the floor, but he's also actively shooting through the floor as he does it. That's his niche for soft breaching. Then you would have Sledge, and his little niche slash gimmick is the fact that if you're on the receiving end of this soft breach, it will cause a little bit of shrapnel damage as well as a small concussion effect as well. You could chalk it down to the power which he swung the sledgehammer and the effect of the materials hitting that operator. I just think that would be a little thing to separate him from Buck and Ram and at least give him something more. Even if they don't do that, I definitely think he should get the SMG back, and as well as this, I think he should definitely hard counter Clash. I think that makes a lot of sense. This next one is by CocoaPuff240, and they say Vigil should get the same buff which Nokk got. So for those of you who don't know, in Operation Twin Shells, Nokk got a little rework and buff where her gadget only depletes when she is doing an action which will cause her to glitch. These actions include shooting, throwing utility, reloading, sprinting, and meleeing. Basically, as long as you're playing stealthy and walking, your gadget will not deplete. This has put Nokk in a very good state, and finally is a version of her gadget which I believe they were always intending to have. And I definitely agree that this same thing should come to Vigil. Now, I know a lot of people hate Vigil right now because the Boss G, which is hilarious right now that I'm actually saying that people genuinely want the Boss G nerfed, because if you've played this game ever since the Boss G came out, it would be ludicrous to be that we're at a stage where people are saying the Boss G should be nerfed. I agree, it's a very good weapon. I also agree, though, that it's 2 shots and you have to make your shots count, so you're getting that reward for it. Regardless of how you feel about the Boss G, that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about his gadget, and I definitely agree. I think as long as you're walking slowly or standing still, your gadget should not deplete. I still think you should have the white lines on the screen, but I definitely think that you should have this same change which happened to Nokk. Because yeah, putting my love of the Boss G aside, I definitely think that Vigil kind of fell off over the years, and I think this really great quality of life change which came to Nokk, because I really love what they've done there. I think they've done an amazing job. I think we should test it out with Vigil as well, because like what came to Nokk, like what we just proposed for Alibi there as well, we're taking the gadget and we're allowing it to act of its full potential while still being balanced. So yeah, I 100% agree. I would love to see the buff that came to Nokk come to Vigil as well, with the same guidelines, the same thing that your gadget will deplete when you're doing actions and everything. I think this is great. This next one is by John Arkins, and he asks, how would you fix spawn peaks? Now, I assume you're asking this from the perspective of you basically being tired of spawn peaks existing. You don't like the fact that defenders can stop attackers coming from the building, and I don't necessarily agree in that sense. The entire premise of the game is for defenders to stop attackers from entering the building and planting. If there are means for defenders to expose themselves to stop attackers from getting into the building itself, I see nothing wrong with that. I don't think the issue lies in the fact that spawn peaks exist, because there are ways to counter it, and a lot of the time attackers can actually get free kills from it. I actually think sometimes it comes down to poor map design. Now, I will be a defender of maps in this game. I will say that map design in this game is actually very good and it's very impressive, and a lot of people take it for granted, and I think a lot of people will just dismiss a map because they're bad at it. But I will say I definitely think in some scenarios the weakest part of map design in this game is the spawns. One of them that stands out heavily to me is Cafe Dostoevsky. I actually quite enjoy Cafe. I think the interior of the map is very fun and I like it, but due to how piss poor the spawns are on that map, I heavily dislike playing it, and I don't get spawn peaked myself because I don't really peak spawn peaks, and I'm quite good at avoiding them these days. I hardly ever die to spawn peaks. I just hate the flow that map pushes attackers to do, and I think it just heavily neutralizes what makes that map good. Cafe has very open spawns which can heavily be seen by windows. One of the things I dislike the most about one of the spawn points, I think it's like the market one or something like that, is that when you choose that spawn point, you can't choose exactly where you'll spawn in that point. So you can either spawn to the right hand side by the freezer garage wall protected by the white van and everything, where you can make your way round by the white van. You'll either spawn there, or the game will just randomly choose to spawn you to the left hand side of that spawn point, where you're actually stuck between either going left, where you can be spawn peeked from piano window, or you can go right, where you can be instantly spawn peeked by the hallway window. So I think spawns need to be looked at on a lot of maps, because why, when I choose this spawn point, I have a gamble of spawning on the safer side, which is the right hand side, or the left hand side, where I'm at least forced to peek one window just to leave spawn. It's just blatant bad spawn design, and I think the map itself is good, but they just need to rework the entire spawns on Cafe, and I think it comes down to the same case for a lot of maps as well. I just think they need to sit down, take a look at a lot of spawn points, and just add more cover, because the issue, in my opinion, isn't the existence of spawn peeking. That's part of the game. You're stopping the attackers from entering the building. It's just the fact that some spawns are just factually bad design. I think if you as an attacker can die within the first 2 seconds of leaving your spawn, that spawn point isn't good. Which I know is an easy thing for map designers to miss, because there's so much going on and people can find like an exploit or a position to get in, which I completely understand. I mean, I even found that on the test server for Lair. Me, as well as Aussie Otter, who you may know from the Spot Busters, where they do like these different spots, and they're very good at like siege parkour and finding these really weird angles and stuff like that. I was streaming the test server for Operation Deep Freeze. This is when Lair came out and everything, and alongside him and a map dev, we managed to find an instant spawn peek by vaulting up on top of a trash can and looking over the gate spawn. We found a way how to do this, and it was patched before the map went to the live server. So I definitely think the devs nowadays are much better at making better spawn points, but I think a lot of the old maps, such as Cafe, need to have another look at them. So to answer your question, I don't think spawn peeking is an issue. I think map design in certain spawns is the issue. This next one is by Electric Win, and they say, if we had 2 Watchdog skins in the game, one for an attacker and one for a defender, what operator or nighthaven agent would I choose? Now, the first one I always go to when I think of a Watchdogs crossover in Rainbow Six Siege is that I always think of Mozzie as Wrench. They have exactly the same charisma. Even when you look at their 2 key arts, they look pretty much the same. They're both holding up finger guns. They are the same similar body build as well. You could do a really fun DedSec related hacking animation for his Mozzie Pest, since he does hack drones, so it fits down that alley as well. I just think Mozzie and Wrench seem so similar, and it would be absolutely perfect for these two to have a skin. I've said this about a million times. You guys probably heard this from forum by me. I know the Yubi devs are tired of me saying it as well, because I've told them so many times, but I would just absolutely love this skin, and I truly hope it comes to the game one day. Now, of course, for another elite skin, I know you said an attacker and everything, but I would love to see Aiden Pierce as an elite skin, and the only person I think is deserving of that, honestly, is Fenrir, because of the whole phone thing. You can have a really fun phone animation with Aiden Pierce. I feel like it just fits Fenrir the most. Of course, Fenrir has that little mask on his suit, so he's immune to his own gas, and you could just say that Aiden's mask is that. I know you said one attacker and one defender, but I can't think of a good attacker who fits a Watch Dogs Elite skin other than Dokkaebi, which Watch Dogs is a series which is really lacking in female characters. I know you had one from Watch Dogs 2, but I don't think she's iconic enough for an elite skin. I definitely think Aiden Pierce should get one, and I think it could fit Fenrir very well. Of course, you'd have the mask up, so you wouldn't really see a lot of his face. You could have the Aiden Pierce trench coat and everything, and of course, you'd have the phone animation to use your Dreadmine. I think it'd be really fun. I mean, I know gadgets don't always have to fit in. You have the Assassin's Creed one for Flores, and then he uses an RCXD, but I definitely do think Fenrir and Mozzie fit Aiden Pierce and Wrench, respectively, the most. And so everyone, that is it for this episode of the Siege Mailbox. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, subscribe if you are new, and be sure to ask your questions for the next video. Have an incredible rest of your day. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.